Hey folks, Ray again from Ray's Thunder Garage, and I mentioned in an earlier video on this 57 that came out of Miami, or South Florida anyway, that I was going to do a rear main seal on it. And for you guys out there that have an early bird with a 292 or a 312 in it, you either have a leaky main rear seal or you've had it replaced somewhere down the line. And I'm going to document the procedure that I use to remove the rear mains and get rid of that, nasty leak that these engines are so famous for. But the first step, you have to get your oil pan off, obviously, but you want to get the steering center link out of the way so that you can drop the oil pan down. There's no way you're going to get your oil pan off without getting that center link out. So do that first and then go after your oil pan. Okay, now that we got our oil pan out of the way, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen these 5 main bearing caps that hold the crankshaft in place. Not going to be able to get to this one just yet because you got to get this aluminum block out of the way, which holds your rear main seal. It's held in by 2 bolts, probably 12-point bolts. They're kind of tight to get a socket in there, so you'll have to work that out. Once you get the bolts out, pry this cap down and out, get it out of the way, and then completely remove this back bearing cap and pull the seal that's left over on the top of the crankshaft out. You may have to rotate the crankshaft as you do this, and then you could grab the seal and pull it out. Sometimes it's a 2-man job. One guy is rotating the crank while another guy is pulling the seal out. Okay, so stand by for the next step. Removing the seal cap right now from the back of the engine. 12.38 bolts. I'm over here with my buddy Bruce. He's a master engine builder. Word has it that he installed the engine in the Fred Flintstone mobile. That's how long he's been doing it. Stand by. There you go. Okay, cap is out.
And no one put any rubber slide.
Are you serious?
Yeah, look, it's
okay, so the seals on this one, the side seals are missing.
exactly. They just put silicone.
Wow. All right, well, we'll fix that problem. All right, we're going to take this last bearing cap all the way off, get it out of the way, and that way we'll be able to get the rest of the seal out from around the crankshaft. Okay, we got that back cap off, and here's a technique that I use. I grab with a vice grip the bottom bolt that's holding on your flywheel to your torque converter, and I clamp it to the bottom of the bell housing. What this does is it pulls the crankshaft out just enough so you can reach way up in there and snag out the rest of the seal, and that's what we're trying to do right now. All right, you can see that we've got part of the seal now with a pair of needle nose, and Bruce is pulling it out, the rest of it out from the top of the crank. This looks like the original rope seal. All right, so now we just got to degrease and clean this area real good.
Doesn't smell bad either.
You want to make sure that you get all of the oil, residual grease, and silicone sealer out of the area where you're going to put your new seal. When you buy your new rear main seal kit, you're going to get a new aluminum block. Obviously, this is the old one. And then you'll get your bottom half of your seal, and then the 2 side seals, which will go in these grooves right here on the side. And that's what we're going to do now. We're going to set this block up for installation. Okay, it's important to realize that the seal's got a lip on one side. That lip's got to face to the inside of the engine. And then when you slide the seal into the block, you want to offset it just a little bit so that one side of the seal sits up, down, up in this area and down on this side, and do the same thing on the crank side so that you don't end up with the seals meeting right here at this edge, because that's where you could get a leak. Your kit's going to come with this little tube of grease or lubricant. You're going to want to lube your seal up real good, because you don't want to start the engine with a dry seal. Otherwise, it could damage the seal as the engine starts. Okay, so now we're installing the upper part of the seal, sliding it into the hole. I know it's kind of hard to get it's a better angle right here. There we go. You got to slide it up into that groove and just work it up. Sometimes you'll have to turn the crank so that it goes all the way around until you get it poking through the other side. Stand by. Okay, the seal is in now, and if you look closely, you can see a part of it is sticking out of the block, and the other half is still recessed up inside the block, and that's the way you want it. Okay, this is our last main bearing cap. We're lubing it up with some white grease before we put it on, and it's critical that you put this part back on before you put this part in, otherwise you're gonna have to take that back off again. So put the cap on first and then put your seal block in. Okay, now that all the bearing caps are in place, we're gonna torque them all down 85 foot-pounds, and then we'll put our filler block that's got our seal in it back there. All right, we got our seal block, or otherwise known as filler block, and we're preparing to get the side seals in place, because you can see that the main seal is already in place right here. So Bruce is putting just a little bit of black silicone sealant in that groove, and then he'll slide his seals in. Stand by. Okay, we've got our filler block with all the seals in it. It's important to notice on the side of the seal there's also a groove. Tip that just a little, rotate that a little bit, Bruce. And this groove right here, obviously we'll go to the outside, and then there's this pin that's going to slide in there after we slide this up. Now you can see Bruce has got this seal. The tips are sticking up just a little bit higher on both sides. So as we slide the block up, these seals are going to bottom out at the top of the block, and then we'll push the rest of that filler block up, and then we'll have a good tight seal. Then afterwards we're going to dress these pins down a little bit because they come kind of thick. They're hard to get in. So we're going to mill these down on that bench grinder and pop those in, and that gives us extra sealing and pushing force on our side seals. Before we slide our block up into place right here, we're going to put some silicone right on these edges of the side of the block that helps the side seal, you know, just where it won't leak. So that'll be next. Okay, so we're putting in our filler block right now. It's important that you put it in correctly, because you can have this thing backwards and not know it. The shoulder on the bottom faces inside the engine, along with the lip on the seal. Once you push it in there, the seals bottom out at the top, then you can stop right. Once you've got your block just about like that, you know, your top seals they're bottomed out. That's why we left them about a ½ inch high. Now we're going to put the bolts in and let the bolts suck this filler block into place. Some of your kits will come with new hardware. Some of the bolts have like an Allen type head on them. We're going back with the same bolts, the 12 points. They're in good shape. And our kit didn't come with hardware, so we're using these.
It's important to pull it up evenly.
Yeah, Bruce makes a good point. You want to go back and forth and get that block to slide up evenly so you don't get it cocked in there as you're going in. Okay, so this is one of the pins that goes into the side seals. These have to be driven up between the block and the seal. And I've always found that they're just a little bit too fat. So what I do is I get on my bench grinder and I mill the side of the seal, the side of this pin, to about half of its diameter, and they're still tight, but you can get them in without tearing up the seal, and it works fine and lasts a long time. Okay, so now you can kind of see before and after. The one on the left I've milled, I don't know, maybe 10/1000ths off of it, and the one on the right is how they come. So I'll get the other one done now. Okay, we're installing our pins in the side seals, and you'll see the pin's got one flat side and one side is round. We're going to put the flat side against that filler block and then tap it up into place, and that'll swell the seal and give us additional sealing force. What we do is we take a small socket before we drive the pin in. We push the pin in by hand just to get it straight, put a nice point on it, and then we put a small socket with an extension and drive it in and follow up the very end of it with the flat punch. Okay, once you got your pin bottomed out, you do the other side, and you'll be pretty much finished with the seal installation. Okay, the block is in. You'll notice that there's a little bit of the seal sticking out down here. You trim that off with a razor blade, and then when you put your pan on, you put your sealant all the way around and you're good to go. Well, the only thing left to do now is to put the oil pan on and get it filled up with oil and see what we've got. But I thought it would be important to note that you saw that we pulled a rope seal out of this engine and we reinstalled a silicone seal, hardened silicone seal. Comes preformed, and it's the only seal you're going to get in with the crankshaft in the car. Your kit may come with a rope seal. That's to install if the engine's out of the car and you're going to drop the crank in. You're never going to be able to get a rope seal back in over the crankshaft and in properly with the crankshaft in the car. So I just wanted to point that out to you. Make sure you get that neoprene seal. It's preformed. They slide in. It's a really good fix. And like always, we appreciate you guys checking in. Let me know if you got any questions.